advisor of IFGE to please come on dais
Recording in
and
progress.
start this session. Subodh Kumar ji has been former ED in Indian Oil, and he is the he is the man behind Satat scheme, and presently he is advisor of Producers Forum of IFGE. So I invite him to please take over and initiate the session. Subodh ji.
Thank you, Mr. Ganju. Good morning, everybody. Now I invite the panelists for this session, session called Carbon Credit, Incentives, Investment and Financing for the CBG Industry. So I invite Mr. Samrat Sengupta, Dr. R.K. Singh, please, Madam Prajakta, Mr. Cheoung, and Mr. Bhavendra Kumarji is on the way. Okay. So let me welcome you once again. Yesterday we had a lot of discussions on the supply side of the biomass, the feedstock, how to handle the FOM, the offtake of the CBG and all. But there are certain other issues which we will be discussing during this session. And what are those? So when we planned this Satat program way back in 2018, so 4 revenue streams were thought about out of a CBG plant. One was the CBG itself, second was the FOM, third was the carbon dioxide, and fourth was the carbon credits. Now, yesterday we talked about CBG and FOM. Today our focus will be on carbon credits, how to do the CO2 valorization. We will also be talking the innovative ways of financing these projects. And of course, there are certain other things which I would like to add here. See, today, when we talk about the CBG or CNG, our mind works only on the 250 bar pressure. By qualification, I'm electrical engineer. And normally, I don't know how many of us are knowing that government of India is actively considering another set of, you can say, delivering electricity to the building and all. So one is, we know the 220 volt, 230 volt kind of the voltages which we are comfortable. In North America, they talk about 110 volt. But actively, there is under active consideration of 50 volt DC also. Now 50 volt DC, because all your equipment, appliances, everything within a building operates. Yeah, Mr. Please come. Please. Welcome, sir. So, 50 volt DC. Now, why I'm telling about this electricity here? It's again, in the CBG business also, or CNG business, everybody is talking, we are talking about 250 bar pressure delivery. But things are available, a thing called adsorbed natural gas, ANG. And there what we can do, we can operate our ecosystem somewhere around 20 bar to 40 bar. Means there are activated carbon within the cylinder, within the casket cylinder, within your car cylinder or whatever the trucks you are driving and all, activated carbon will be there, and the filling will be done at 18 bar to 40 bar depending on which system we adopt. And safely it can be operated in that pressure. So yesterday when we were talking about delivering to the pipeline at 250 bar, reducing the pressure, injecting at a 4 to 40 bar kind of thing. Now this kind of delivery cylinders and all. So I'm not talking about something out of my hat and all. We are within the Indian Oil. We started working on 2017. Presently, this kind of cylinders are under testing with the PESO here in India, and shortly we may have another system here that all the cars and the three-wheelers and the trucks may be operating in that pressure range. So that is one thing. Other thing what we were talking about yesterday, the point came that why we cannot have the kind of LNG kind of thing here. The only problem was there that when we examined that, it takes around 2 units of power to liquefy that. But interesting thing is that in the CBG plant, everybody knows that the separation of the CO2 and methane again is a cost, and almost 1 unit or slightly less than 1 unit of power is used there, apart from the capex and all those things. But with this liquefaction system, we can do both the work simultaneously. If we are liquefying the methane, that is the temperature is minus 160 degrees centigrade, but CO2 will liquefy much before that, somewhere around minus 29 degrees centigrade. So those things, so these are the new things which will be coming in the market and all. I just wanted to share all those things. Since this forum has recently been formed, we are working on those areas also. Interestingly, this kind of things will be, within the forum, I will be heading all these things, and I request for the volunteers from the group who can work with us on these ideas. Now, thank you very much on this. With this, I will like to introduce the co-panelists. With me are, shortly we will be joining by Dr. Oliver Lütke, he is professor also, and Chief Technical Officer and Vice Chairman of Management Board of Verbio, Germany. He will be joining us from the US. Presently, he is in US, and it is almost 11:30 night there. So I will not be holding him. Then we are graced with the presence of Mr. Samrat Sengupta. He is Vice President, Business Development of ECO Energy Services Limited. If you don't know this company, I don't know, you don't follow the stock market. They made the boom in the stock market. Their share prices went to 10,000 rupees. And this was a MSME, very small scale company, registered in BSE. Share prices shot up to 10,000 rupees. And then rest, or we call it a history. They operate in the carbon credit market. Dr. R.K. Singh is with us. He's a CGM, Green Vertical, SIDBI, very, very experienced person, and has worked in a lot of social area of the SIDBI. Swalamam Foundation and whatnot means is a very, very I will request Dr. Singh, when he is making his presentation, to introduce himself slightly more on that. We are having Mr. Cheoung from Korea. He is advisor to ECO-NEXUS Carbon Credits Company Limited. He is not new to India, means he is visiting India for last 5-6 years, and he was associated with the IFGE also on our bamboo activities. Then we are having Ms. Prajakta Chitre. She has come from Singapore. She is a senior infrastructure specialist on World Bank. They are having a very, very special program in this green energy sector for the India. Then she has other areas she has under her focus, South Asia, Sub-Saharan Africa, East Asia, Europe, and all those things. She is Bachelor of Science in Business Administration and MBA also. Mr. Bhavendra Kumar is a Chief General Manager from Canara Bank, and presently 495 branches are under him in this Delhi circle, and he's handling the business worth of 2.45 lakh crore and all. Canara Bank is one of the lead banker for the Satat scheme under the for the CBG. I hope I've introduced everybody. Now I will invite Mr. Samrat Sengupta ji to start his, before that, excuse me, because I promised Dr. Oliver Ludke to ask him first. So, over to Dr. Oliver for your address.
Hello. Yes. Dear ladies and gentlemen, dear friends of renewable biogas. For me, it's a great pleasure to be invited to join this session, Carbon Credits, Incentives, Investment and Financing for CBG Industry, moderated by Subodh Kumar. The key topic for this entire event is how to find a way to make CBG an attractive business model in India. If CBG would be an attractive business model, then the investment and financing from banks would be possible and the global leading CBG industry would be developing in India. Today, CBG in the fuel sector in India is priced in relation to its fossil competitor, natural gas. But ladies and gentlemen, this pricing model is not sufficient to generate an attractive business model for CBG in India. Natural gas by itself is way cheaper as CBG from paddy straw or other agricultural residuals which have to be collected from farming fields. That's why in times of low CNG prices, also CBG will be unattractive and that's not bankable for financing. Key point, what is missing is that in CBG pricing model, there is no premium for the greenhouse gas emission savings of CBG compared to compressed natural gas, CNG. We are selling a Mercedes-Benz, but we only got paid for a tuk-tuk. So a key question is, how could we monetize the greenhouse gas emission saving from CBG? There are globally several concepts existing to monetize greenhouse gas emission savings, which are also called carbon credits. And the reasoning for these systems are always the same. Biofuels with low greenhouse gas emission savings are more expensive than its fossil competitors and need a premium price. Only with this premium, these biofuels will have an attractive business model. I will explain the concept of the monetization, which is used in Germany. This concept is, for example, similar to the low carbon fuel standard of California or the CBIOS system in Brazil and other countries of the world. Key point is always that the climate change is the key problem we are globally facing, and the root cause for this climate change are emissions of CO2 and some other components from burning fossil energy carriers. These components have increasing concentrations in the air, resulting in a higher heat retention and thus higher temperatures on Earth. Key point of Germany's monetization concept is that a policy was introduced which put an obligation on the oil companies to reduce their greenhouse gas emissions of its fossil products, gasoline and diesel. To be in compliance with this policy, the oil industry have to blend biofuels, including compressed biogas with low greenhouse gas emissions into their fossil products, thus producing a fuel mix with the obligated reduction of greenhouse gas emissions. This obligation on the oil industry is increasing year by year, and in 2013 it should be 25%. In addition to this policy framework was implemented how to calculate carbon credits or greenhouse gas emissions for biofuels. This was a large piece of legislation because it has to be applicable for all biofuel types and all production pathways. In this calculation, the following points of greenhouse gas emissions were included. First, the emissions for cultivation of the raw material. Second, the emissions for transportation of the raw material. Third, the emissions from producing a biofuel from this raw material. And fourth, the emissions for transportation of the biofuel to the end consumer. There are a couple of more emission points considered in this policy, which I will neglect based on the time restrictions. Also important was that this policy included a penalty for non-compliance. To explain this a little bit more practically, the baseline from burning 1 kg of fossil GNG is approximately 4.7 kg of CO2 emissions to the environment. To reduce these emissions by 10%, the oil company has to sell, for example, 0.86 kg of fossil CNG and 0.14 kg of CBG with greenhouse gas savings of 75% compared to CNG. Here in my example, this would mean emissions of approximately 1.2 kg of CO2 per kg of CBG. With this mix, the oil industry would be in compliance with the 10% greenhouse gas emission savings target. With this new policy, the greenhouse gas savings of CBG, also called carbon credits, defines the market value of the CBG. If you are producing CBG with very low greenhouse gas emission, it makes a significant difference for the customer, the oil industry. The lower the greenhouse gas emissions are, the less product of CBG he needs and the more he is willing to pay for the CBG. For the CBG producer, this means that his pricing has two components. One is for its energy content, and the second, more important one, is the price of his greenhouse gas emission savings, also called carbon credits. Based on the supply and demand of these carbon credits in the market, the price will go up and down. The demand is defined by the increasing obligation of greenhouse gas emission savings for gasoline and diesel in the legislation. Today we are at a value of 8% in Germany, but this value will go up step by step to 25% in 2030. So the demand will be growing significantly. In times where we had a huge demand and not sufficient supply, the price for these carbon savings was going up to 400 euro per ton of CO2 saving. But there were also times when it was only 100 euro per ton of CO2 savings. In my example, this would mean 1 kg of CBG with greenhouse gas emissions of 1.2 kg CO2 will save 3.5 kg of CO2 emissions compared to fossil CNG. Based on the 100 euro per ton of CO2 saving, this savings will have a value of 35 euro cent. Ladies and gentlemen, I hope with this example it's clear how a carbon credit system can work and generate premium for the greenhouse gas emission savings of CBG compared to fossil competitors. As I already said, globally there are different systems for monetizing greenhouse gas emission savings existing, and India needs to develop their own policy framework to make sure that CBG becomes an attractive business model in India. Thanks for your attention.
Thank you, Dr. Oliver, for your thought and very, very good examples you have mentioned about that. Now I invite Mr. Samrat Sengupta to tell us about the carbon credit market and what his company is thinking about investing in the green energy market and all. Thank you, sir.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you, moderator, for giving me the opportunity to part of this August panel. I represent a company called EKI Energy Services Limited, and our main business is working on the carbon market, dealing with carbon credits, providing carbon finance to the project developer who are investing in carbon emission reduction projects. This company started this operation in 2008 as a small consulting firm out of a city called Indore in Madhya Pradesh. And presently we are present in 16 different countries with 40 different clientele from 40 different countries. And we have a portfolio of around 200 million carbon credits being traded into the world market, having a share of almost 20% of the credit that is getting retired in last financial year. And when I am talking about these credits, I am talking about especially on the voluntary carbon credit, where the nations at the south do participates in generation or providing those credits. We have seen Professors Oliver's talk and the very rosy numbers being presented, and that we like to means that number ideally should be very much true for India, but it's the number which relates to European ETS system. And the voluntary carbon market is completely different, because European ETS systems runs with a penalty of €100 per unit of credit default. So that's create a basically a MSP kind of a situation of the credit that get generated there and traded there. And voluntary credit post the CDM era, the other country credit or the credit that being generated in the southern countries are not allowed to consume under this ETS. Earlier there was a cap consumption in the CDM era, Kyoto Protocol era, that has created a substantial market into the 2008 to 2012-13 for Indian carbon credits, and the country has benefited out of it. Most of our solar intervention on renewable intervention had got lot of benefit through it. But post Kyoto meltdown, 2013 onwards, till the Paris Agreement again built up, the market is still in a there is a lot of volatility in the market which we have to consider on. I am not going into the details of my company, that you can means if you are interested, go through our website. We are a BSE listed and possibly the only publicly listed carbon asset management company in the world. Almost 90+% of Indian carbon as well as 20+% of global carbon is on our portfolio. Though it is a quite, people have talked about lot of things. So the net zero concept, the scientific concept of net zero, which is driving the whole activities around the globe towards decarbonization, which talks about that it can't be possible for absolute zero. Any human activity will be having some emissions. Even your physical presence as a living organism in this earth has an emission. So how also this earth has some potential to sequester those emissions through various biota. So it is a balancing of how much earth can sequester, how much extra emission that is getting built up into the atmosphere. It is talking about the carbon pool in the gaseous form only. So that driving the factor that net zero, we should arrive a position globally where our human induced GHG emission should be net off by the potential of sequestration this earth atmosphere or earth biota has. So that's the point of net zero, and as per IPCC Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, we have to arrive it by 2050. Based on that, this is I am projecting a little bit history of the carbon market. Though carbon market may be very new to lot of our friends, but it's initially started in 2005 with the activation of Kyoto Protocol. And under that market, that was purely a compliance market where the Annex 1 or the developed country has a commitment of reduction of 5.4% of their absolute emissions. And in that process, they can also invest in the south and get the emission credit. But that hasn't actually been done in a bilateral form. It has become a unilateral where investors in India or China, India and China are the major participants in that. So has invested in emission reduction projects and traded those credits into the European market, mainly European market. US was not part of that game. because it was primarily built on common but differentiated responsibility. Now in Kyoto, post-Kyoto, the Paris era, the main difference is that we have suppressed the differentiated responsibility. And we have came into an understanding to bring everybody on board that everybody should take the commitment, but it is not a top-down given number. Everybody should talk about what commitment they like to take in the form of NDC, nationally determined contribution. And we have taken our contribution in the form of percentage of emission intensity of the GDP. That's possibly one of the right approach, being so populated country and having per capita emissions so low. So post 2015 of Paris Agreement, the good part of it that it creates a huge awareness and commitment, not from only the government or establishment, but from the various corporates and other organizations who have sufficient footprint of carbon to take a voluntary target, and which latter been now getting translated because the financial institutions are getting more and more aware about the environmental and social risks internalization in their decision making towards investment. So that's a good part of it. Around 200 years ago, whatever the wrong thing we have done in developing this capital based financial development model, that we have not internalized the cost of nature, the cost of environment and social into our decision making. Yeah. So coming from that, so that creates a market on the voluntary carbon credit, and we have seen from 2019 to 21 the market has gone quite good, but post the European war the offtake is getting hampered. Now for the CBG as a technology is primarily there is it is applicable for the carbon market. On the various nitty-gritty and compliance issues, we have there are both side of the market, compliance carbon market and voluntary carbon market, which is coming up. The compliance market is coming up in Article 6.2. You might have seen the Government of India notifications, though CBG was not part of it, but as a technology which has substantial co-benefit associated with it for the country, beside the carbon credit, we as a forum, you as a forum, should push for this kind of technology to be included in Article 6.2, which will give an extra push or some kind of a stabilization of the market where the carbon-based financing, we are into carbon-based financing, where the carbon-based pre-financing for any projects become very easy. Nowadays, there is no projection of how the market will behave. Overall, lots of econometric model has shown the market will be 100% increase, 200% increase in price, but generally the econometric model and at the actual market operation doesn't go hand in hand. So though the voluntary carbon market will be helping you in giving some minimum support price for the carbon based on which pre-financing can be arranged, but considering it under compliance market system, and if we can push it, government to consider it under the government Article 6.2 scheme, that will give a huge credibility on that part. On the methodology and other aspects issues, there are several consultants like us and like other in the market who can be of help to provide it. That's not a matter. The transaction cost will be very minimum to it. As Professor has already talked about, there is various points of carbon benefit in a CBG. First, the output in the form of CBG, the manure, the replacement of fossil. So on the part of sufficient credit generation, there is no issue. As a green investor, because we have an arm of investing into technologies, and CBG and biogas is part of it, including biofuels. These are well recognized into the carbon market. The technology is quite attractive for green investor. There is no issue on that. So bringing on board the carbon value chain while a project developer take on the development of such technologies, it need to be ensured that a carbon market player in the form of finance, in the form of consultant, whoever, and what form, that's individual choice, should be on board at the time of your investment decision get finalized. Because there are a lot of micro procedural and technical issues which need to cover up to make your credit availability without any risks, without any so-called uncertainty into the credit generations. So these are almost when we are talking about CBG, these are the country potential. It's been taken from a government source. Just to highlight that the supply chain of CBG mostly lies into the unformalized sector, and particularly the supply chain, the upside supply chain in the form of MSW. There is a technology yet to be on the segregation part. We as an investor don't find it always very dependable technologies, because a mixing of plastics or any other foreign material which has a substantial carbon input will jeopardize the whole process of carbon credit. Like MSW, if you are putting to develop a CBG, and if it is not segregated the bio part of it properly, the carbon credit will be in a question. Also, the supply chain has a issue of multiple usage of that supply chain and related commercial valuations of it. That may create an uncertainty of the project sustainability. The technology and raw material sustainability, as well as regulatory compliance and lack of providing a single window facility, which we can talk to our regulators, our government people, to provide us that supports. Because carbon credit is not something you are getting extra out of it. It is your efficient operation of the plant which is ultimately linked to generation of this carbon leverage to you. Some of the suggestions from our side, as a interested investor in the form of bringing carbon finance into the whole investment, either in the form of revenue financing or equity financing, we should push for Article 6.2 recognition for this sector by the government. That will create a whole new avenues for investment. Also, the raw material unsustainability can be addressed by mediation of government, because unless it will be very difficult to sustain the business in, or to provide a long-term sustainability for the business for conventional financing. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Sengupta. And now I invite Mr. Cheoung to put his points, how we see Indian carbon credit market, and he will also, I will also request him to talk about this Article 6.2, whether CBG is included there or what is the status now. Please, Mr. Cheoung.
my presentation.
Your presentation is loaded there?
Under there. Ah, yeah.
Is there?
Yeah. I'm come from Korea. I'm sorry, I'm not fluent in English, so I will speak slowly. Yeah. 2 months ago, Indian government announced that mitigation outcome can be transferred to other country, including CBG, 13 sector allowed to ITMO. So I come here to invest for the project and transfer to the carbon credit for Korean compliance market. So we must we need some time to make bilateral contract with the Korean government and Indian government. But before the contract, under the ground, Korean government and Korean agency and company move very quickly to select good opportunity, and also in Korean government eager to finding the investment target. Korean has declared NDC, national Korean government declared 40% reduction of the carbon emission. To do that, Korean government using the foreign carbon credit 37 million tons carbon credit import to Korea. So Korean government, yeah, it's the background I come to here. Shortly I introduce my ECO-NEXUS carbon credit. ECO-NEXUS carbon credit was a business platform to carbon credit investment and developing and buying the carbon credit. And also we developing and handling the carbon registration for UNFCCC. Also for under the 6.2, we my first carbon credit project start from India and China in 27 for HFC project. And I also established in UK Eco Frontier Carbon Partners. We develop and invest as a CER buyer 12 projects, and we contract for CER buying total 20 million CERs. But the carbon market crash, so we cannot generating almost nothing, only investment. After that, I come to India. We try to fuel switching from the coal in the cement industry with bamboo plantation. So we call IFGE. And also now we invest for micro gasifier cook stove in West Bengal area. It can reduce the fuel, cooking fuel consumption almost half, and generating charcoal during the cooking process. So every housewife get secret money from the charcoal sales. Now we are doing another project for in India and Ethiopia for get ITMO. We only focus now without any policy declaration of Indian government. We only focused voluntary carbon market. Now we move to ITMO. I will show the under the global policy change from the Kyoto Protocol. We use the CDM mechanism. Now we move to Paris Agreement. Under the Paris Agreement, we can do 6.2 cooperative approach. It is a kind of CDM mechanism, but it is determined by two countries. If Korean government and Indian government make a contract, then we can more flexible to under the Paris 6.4 mechanism. So, for example, we using the how much we reduce the carbon emission. We must apply determined methodology, develop but under the UN methodology, in CBG project, every CBG project separating the CO2. But under the UN mechanism, there are no methodology. But in Korean carbon trading mechanism, using the carbon capture and use for other purpose, then we can get carbon credit. So, if Korean government and Indian government accept that methodology, then you can get from another source of carbon credit. So we more flexibility. It is almost the same process for the CDM process, but everything is determined two countries, but must we follow the UN rule. Korean government target to secure 37.5 million CO2 equivalent tons. It is a target to reach 2030, but after that, every year, Korean must secure this amount of carbon credit. But Korean government not want to buy in the global market to carbon credit. Korean government wants to supporting Korean government to business in the world. So they only allow free admission Korean company involved project. Only the carbon credit from the Korean company involved project. So Korean government minimum requirement is 20% equity of the project. Yeah. So to buying the carbon credit, Korean company must invest first. So it will be who wants to equity invest, it is a good chance. But Korean company's purpose is not to share the profit from the CBG. So it is equity investment in in operationalize like the debt. So no touch the profit from the project. So already Korean has a legal system, carbon compliance market for Korean company, and also to secure the ITMO for Korean government NDC. So now each minister wants to secure the carbon credit through their agency. It is Korean Minister of Agriculture, Minister of Environment, Minister of Industry and Energy, and Minister of Transportation, who minister designated their agency. Through the agency, they contact and contract with the Korean developing company. So we doing this project belong to environment, Minister of Environment sector. It was a kind of waste sector, or the transportation sector. It is a transportation energy. So we can apply two agency, but generally it is regarded as a Minister of Environment. So we co-work with the Minister of Environment. To do this project, finally, Korean government and Indian government must bilateral agreement. Already, Korean government designated their agency, and also Korean government wants to secure the available project, so supporting the finding the available project. So the agency requests us to feasibility study which project is available and sustainable. So we will one way Korean government and Indian government now negotiation to agreement to preparing contract. On another side, we listing the available project and free feasibility study, and also we listing available project, and also we can assume how much we can secure the carbon credit. Now there are no limit, but later country by country and by sector there may be cap. So before the cap, I want to secure available full project. If we free admission from the government and also list in the Indian government, we can transfer the carbon credit for 10 years. We can sell at the fixed project, fixed price, and we may prepay as a equity or shareholders loan. So I will, but is there one big problem? If we transfer the carbon credit, Indian must increasing the carbon, their NDC. So we must agree how to share the reduced carbon credit. So Indian government and Korean government predetermine how much contribution to the carbon reduction. So there are some rules. it is a criteria. How much financing, who give the technology, and also where is the target area. Every project is in India. It is 10% is the minimum Indian portion. If Indian side only Korean company do everything, in that case, Korean contribution is 90%, and Indian company is 10%. So we can claim that 90% carbon credit to move to Korea. But another portion is how long the involved period and how many organization or how many participants involved. So if we consider the weighting factor, it is a sample of the Korean and Vietnam. Now it must be adjusted in Korean and Indian. But without this valuation, 50-50 is baseline. And also later, Indian government and Korean government can negotiation by government. In that case, we may claim 90%. Then 90% carbon credit to sell Korea. So it is a real assumed example of the carbon, how to cash flow if we, how much the transfer available to Korea, and also how much the funding from Korea. Then if the equity portion 90% from Korea, in that case, 90% Korean company pay for equity or equity plus some shareholders loan, then project owner, they need very small money. But in that case, there may be severe due diligence, maybe. Very easy approach is minimum Korean company should hold 20%. Then in that case, they can pay more price. And also, Korean prepaid funded money will be return dividend or any loan repayment for 10 years. So it will be a good financing source for the project owner. Even though we are not a loan, we are financing or the free pay for the carbon credit. So it will help project development. So next month we will start Korean government supported feasibility study. And that, in the report, I want to listing who available or who wants to sell the carbon credit to Korean market. We will listing every company. Then we applying to Korean government the free admission. Then to get free admission, you must suggest PDD, how much the project can generate in the carbon credit, and how to monitoring and the plan of the project. So I co-work with the Indian partner, SIDBI. They will communication your company, and also we will preparing the PDD document to application for Korea, and also we can support to listing in Indian government. Yeah, it's my presentation. Thank you.
So thank you, Mr. Cheoung. So slightly briefly I will say, so what he is inviting that some equity can come from the Korean company, then only the carbon credit can be transferred to Korea. And that will be minimum 20% equity and up maximum 90%. That is what he was trying to say. They have also have some Indian partner here, 3E Bioethan, the company name he mentioned. So through them, they will be operating. Now I invite Mr. R.K. Singh, Dr. R.K. Singh, for his thought on the subject.
Namaskar, green morning to everybody. So I represent green vertical of SIDBI. We have prioritized the green agenda because we thought that a lot of pipelines are getting created for green investment, and we should give it a lifeline by bringing finance into it. So SIDBI, you all must be aware, we are mostly a playback singer for entrepreneur, enterprise and entrepreneurship promotion in the country as a development bank. But now in most of the platforms which are national priority like green, we are trying to be on the conference board so that we learn more and then customize and evolve schemes which are required. So SIDBI is right from direct lending to basically we evolved as a refinance institution. Today we do direct lending, we do intensive promotion and development programs. Particularly you just think about entrepreneurship and we are there. So right from startups being supported to entire micro, small and medium enterprises, SIDBI has been playing a good role. But digitizing the entire turf of lending is what we have been doing for last few years. And something where MSME loan was happening in months, we have been able to bring it to hours. And so that is the transition SIDBI has been working on. SIDBI also powers one of the most impactful program which is presently running, even I would say across the globe, the PM Swanidhi program, which is empowering the street vendors, and SIDBI is powering it digitally through Udemy Mitra platform. And you must have heard about PSB 59, that is supported by SIDBI through a startup. So MSMEs are now the largest employer and largely MSME reside in clusters. While we get impacted mostly through all these climate changes, we are also impacting a lot of challenges we are giving on the climate side. So SIDBI has been working in clusters, and we have identified 1,000+ clusters which are energy inefficient, and we are trying to prioritize out there. Our colleague from EKI was mentioning about the ESG aspects, and so SIDBI is working on how do we embed ESG into the credit appraisal system itself. Like SIDBI has set up with AFD France, a thought leadership platform which is Green Indian Financial System. And there we are moving with a mandate and agenda that the financing to green will not happen unless we green the financing. And when I say we green the financing, it is basically how do we work on embedding ESG. So SIDBI has created, in last 1.5 years, we have created a good chunk of green portfolio which is ESG embedded. And we are working with IBA and other, say, stakeholders and institutions and think tanks to embed ESG into this. And aligned to the national agenda of energy independent and as also carbon neutral aspects, SIDBI is trying to give this area a fillip. But before that, we have also adopted that SIDBI should emerge a carbon neutral institution by itself. And we have roped in EKI as our consulting partner to help us becoming carbon neutral by 2024. This space is quite big. If the CBG comes within the green fold, if you see, estimation is that 90,000 crore around deficient finance gap market is there on energy efficiency side alone. In the solar rooftop, again, SIDBI has brought in a focused attention that side. There is a huge gap. On the biogas side, the gap you can see it's quite a good number. And on waste management, it is around 14 billion USD fund requirement is there. So SIDBI has been working on a role of risk sharing facility. We have been working on a energy efficiency program with World Bank, where we kindled the market of for ESCOs. So nobody was supporting ESCOs, energy service companies, and so we could evolve that market first by directly creating a portfolio and then anchoring the risk sharing facility. So today we have 14 lenders onboarded, and it's one of a program where it gave us a lot of confidence over 7 years. Generally, like SIDBI also manages CGTMSC and NCGTC to provide credit guarantee. But here what we do is any proposal which involves technical intensity, or it is not done earlier, or it is emerging, and people are wary about technicality of this. We have created a pool of technical specialists within SIDBI who filter these proposals on the technical side, and then we provide in principle approval for guarantee coverage. Till now, whatever portfolio in 7 years we have supported, created, there has not yet been an NPA till now. And so that is what is the technical filtering prowess we are able to bring into this space. So these are 5 priority areas we have identified for this financial year. 2,500 solar rooftop is in MSME for captive usage. We are trying to ensure that at least entire SIDBI customers become solar rooftop they adopt, and we have brought this on board with the best of interest rate in the market. The idea is not to replace anybody. The idea is to place the market right, and that is what is the role SIDBI brings in more. A few days back, we launched this 50,000 EV mission. This is basically, we will create a EV ecosystem and support that so that these 50,000 EVs at least come on board with thrust on 3-wheelers. And this is a starter program which SIDBI is doing on its own under guidance of multilaterals. But a big program is in offing in discussion with a few multilaterals, including World Bank and ADB. And so we would be testing this product directly as also through NBFCs. And NBFCs, we are going to focus on those which are even not rated or not rated enough to be picked up by normal banking channel. We are going to work on this. For evolving this, we discussed with more than 550 stakeholders pan-India, and under guidance of World Bank and other stakeholders, and are in a position to evolve a product which is aligned to what is the expectation in the market. The third agenda which we have picked up is 2,000 crore energy efficiency. So we have already pumped in, we have been working in this space since 2005-06 and would have invested around $1.5 billion into this segment, reaching more than 50,000 MSMEs. But here we are giving it a focus attention for this financial year that we would be working on this. And next is waste to environment taste. And here this is another focus area where we all are thinking about how do we manage the waste and maybe waste to energy, how do we handle these aspects. SIDBI would be prioritizing this. And last is nurture the nature. We have created a basket of 900 plus technologies which are energy efficient, green and clean. And we are collaborating with our you can say mentor and partner institution like Bureau of Energy Efficiency and TIFAC. And with them, we would be upgrading this basket so that a banker is able to fund it easily. In fact, within SIDBI, we have tested a tool which is called Diyas. Diya is in Hindi, you know all Diya, but what we have done is this is do it yourself to make things go green. And so here what we do is the appraising officer need not worry about what are the technicalities aspect into doing these technical proposals. As also they are not worried about what is the GHG emission reduction it will offer or energy efficiency it will lead to. This auto tool we have developed which helps them in only concentrating on what they know best. And so that way this would be one area we would be working on. So as I mentioned, risk sharing is area where we have evolved. We are in fact also providing with the help of World Bank guidance to few other countries also to evolve this product. Because this is first of its kind product where the anchoring agency, which is SIDBI, does first the loans, create a portfolio, then brings others that how did we do this. So we have provided guarantee coverage of around 219 crore, and as I mentioned, these are, I call it, these are butterscotch guarantee coverage, where we do the technical evaluation first, find out the technical veracity, and then provide guarantee coverage. So based on this, we have with GIZ and NAMA facility, we have come out with this project of risk sharing on solid waste management side. And the idea is that whenever SIDBI pitches in unknown, untested, underserved areas, it is all to bridge that gap and mainstream it so that this becomes a normalized product in the market. So a lot of access to finance aspects were like picked up by us during stakeholder discussion, and so this is what it's a small attempt, but it's a I would say it is going to trigger the market the right way, and that is what is the endeavor here. And another aspect is while we cover credit guarantee up to 4 crores, from April itself CGTMSE has enhanced guarantee coverage from 2 to 5 crores. But here we would be taking care of, because we provide this technical assessment as a add-on tool. Second is we would be covering proposals which are falling in medium sector because CGTMSE only covers micro and small enterprise. Third is we are also talking to CGTMSE, which is also managed by SIDBI only under guidance of Ministry of MSME, that can we package these both together and maybe enhance this 5 crore to add 4 crore more. So this is under discussion because any challenge which comes up, we resolve it through a proactive step from our side and in collaboration with our partners. Here we are thinking of that they should leverage 3 times of what corpus we are bringing in on board. This is one CBG facility which we are working out with the World Bank, and here we are thinking of leveraging around 5,000 crore investment into this fold, and this would be managed by SIDBI as a program manager. So whatever themes are evolving which are aligned to the say national agenda and global alignment agenda, SIDBI is prioritizing that. Like our team, focus team has started working on that how do we do the hydrogen financing and find out where are the gaps and how do we meet out these gaps. So I thought we'll be very quick and focus out here. A few days back I was in a program where it was a mixed discussion program, and we were given the last spot. So I said, while green is last in this conference, but green will only last the entire discussion format, and that is what we believe. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Singh. We will be taking questions later when this thing. I now invite Mr. Bhavendra Kumar from Canara Bank, who are our lead banker for the Satat program also.
Good morning to all of you, esteemed panelists and August gathering out here. So I am Bhavendra Kumar, CGM from Canara Bank, heading Delhi Circle of Canara Bank. And just a brief background, I'll telling about Canara Bank. Canara Bank is third largest banks in public sector with a business of more than 20 lakh crore as on December 2022. And my Delhi circle, it is comprising 10 regional offices in Delhi and Uttarakhand, including Ghaziabad and Noida. So my circle covers all this, and with a business mix of 2.5 lakh crore. And Canara Bank is the lead bank under this CBG program from the Ministry of Petroleum and Natural Gas. So we have formulated the scheme for the banks in the country. And because I have heard all the panelists about CBG, then carbon credit, so many things, it is much higher, but I will start from the basics. So this biogas or CBG, compressed biogas, so it is for the non-initiated, those who are new, it is produced from all waste. So agriculture residue, solid waste, sewage treatment plant waste, sugar cane waste, all waste, it is coming from all waste. And it has got the same value, similar value and properties as in CNG. So it keeps the same, almost similar energy for different types of requirement. For automotive, industrial sector, so all sectors can get benefit of this CBG, and dependence on the fuel, fossil fuel will come down. That is what is the topic here. And the Ministry of Petroleum and Natural Gas launched SATAT, Sustainable Alternative Towards Affordable Transportation, a scheme in 2018 with the objective to utilize 62 million metric ton of waste that is produced in the country each year. So huge capacity is here under this biogas or CBG, and cutting down on import, because we are importing almost 85% of our energy requirement from abroad. So this will give a huge leeway for the country to cut down on imports on. Then job creation will be there, then reducing vehicular emission. And this is the target groups, what we have: entrepreneurs who have been awarded. Purpose for this scheme, actually we have formulated the scheme for in the country. So for setting up CBG plant, and for this the target groups are entrepreneurs who have been awarded with a letter of intent from OMCs, oil marketing companies. Suppose somebody is having this letter of intent, they can approach banks for funding. Then letter of intent part, then nature of loan. So banks are giving loans into term loan and working capital as well. So both term loan and working capital. Quantum will be up to 100 CR, 100 crore up to 100 crore we are giving from public sector banks. Margin will be 15 to 25%. Rate of interest 1 year MCLR. For security for the scheme, what we have formulated, hypothecation of the assets what is created out of the bank finance, then mortgage of landed property with a minimum of 133% of the loan amount where the unit is situated. Then commercial agreement that will be part of that, escrow arrangement will be made with the OMCs. Tripartite agreement and escrow arrangement for routing the receivables. So whatever income is generated, that will be routed through the banks who are funding in this case. And wherever tripartite agreement is not there, so minimum 50% collateral security will be insisted. Repayment period will be 10 to 15 years with moratorium of 18 to 24 months. And already we have started lending in this sector, and Canara Bank has already lent 9 projects. We have already done, because it started I think of late only. So already we have done 9 projects amounting to 194 crore, and all 9 projects are disbursed. 137 crore we have already disbursed, and then you can see State Bank of India, PNB, Punjab and Sindh Bank, UCO Bank, SDFC Bank, Axis Bank, South Indian Bank, all banks are lending under this project if it is viable proposition. And Canara Bank, we have lent across India. It's not limited to any of the geographies. So across India we have been lending. And whenever you feel that project is there, because our circle office is in Delhi, Nehru Place, so you can approach us. And if it is, even if it is in other states of the country, we can direct you, we can arrange you the funding from Canara Bank. So thank you. So as I have already told, Canara Bank is having 9,500 branches across India. So funding will be given from across the country. Wherever you are establishing your project, Canara Bank will be there to support in this endeavor. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Kumar Sahab. Now I invite Ms. Prajakta Chitre to give her view on the subject and what World Bank think about this initiative in India, especially the CBG and the green energy in general, particularly the CBG project. Ms. Chitre.
Okay, thank you very much. Good morning, everybody, and thank you, panelists, and for the invitation to speak. So let me just quickly introduce myself. I'm Prajakta Chitre. I'm a senior infrastructure finance specialist at the World Bank. I have about 15 years of experience in structured finance and infrastructure finance globally. So today I'll be giving you an overview of World Bank itself and how we are looking at the sector. So I think when you think about the World Bank, it's quite a large behemoth of an organization. And if you go on our website, you'll see our broad objectives, our twin goals as we call it, which is reducing poverty and increasing shared prosperity. But in reality, there's a lot that comes under all of these objectives. In particular, if we think about India and if we think about where we want to see and how we want to engage, our objectives are really around promoting resource-efficient growth, around enhancing competitiveness and job creation, investing in human capital, and of course, the reason we're all here today is to increase access to sustainable energy. So these are our large objectives. So how do we do them? Our primary goal as the World Bank is to work at the request of the government, and in this case, it's the central government. So our primary clients are going to be the sovereign, the sub-sovereign, and then state-owned entities as well. So obviously we design projects and everything we do is going to be in line with the objectives of the state agencies. And in this particular case, our engagement with the CBG sector is with Ministry of Petroleum and Natural Gas. So then we come to specifically what do we do and how do we engage in these sectors. So our primary products and instruments are loans and grants. Obviously, this is quite obvious as the banking part of the World Bank is to provide concessional lending and grants to governments to who essentially will engage or design in some of these downstream projects. Now, another instrument that is maybe lesser known, and the reason I mention this is because we'll come to it a bit later, is guarantees. And what guarantees do is that we use World Bank capital in the form of a guarantee to backstop risks in projects. So this is credit enhancement, risk mitigation, to support commercial banks to come into sectors that they may not otherwise, or come into countries that they may not otherwise see as being kind of viable. And we help offset some of those risks by providing World Bank guarantees. And what that essentially does is World Bank will take that risk, tell the private sector, okay, for a portion of your risk, we'll cover it, so you can come into the country and engage in the projects. And this is quite an important instrument, as I'll explain a bit later. So how does the World Bank view biogas? I mean, obviously, as it's been discussed, we see this as a very, very important sector, very, very exciting for the development of India, and really as a tangible solution to multiple challenges, both environmental challenges and social challenges as well. I think I won't talk about these because they've been discussed at length over the last day. I think in addition to that, obviously also addresses a lot of India's energy challenges as well, and in this day and age, energy security and independence as well. So this is a very, very important sector for us, very exciting sector, and we have kind of a lot of our management behind this as well. Now, this is a slide that's been discussed in different forms as well in the last few days. One thing that we have seen quite a lot in this space, and when we think about it really from a broad sectoral view, is that at the end of the day, biogas has the potential to be a commercially operating sector. And what we mean by that is that their supply and demand of financing is quite matched. However, there's a number of issues that can get in the way. And as we heard yesterday as well, can limit the bankability of projects. And what does the bankability mean? Bankability really means that the commercial banks cannot see the viability of the cash flows and are therefore cannot bank the projects based on the projects on their own. And the reason for this was again mentioned. So there's the baseline sectoral issues. I won't go into these, but around feedstock, storage, aggregation, et cetera. Then there's the market risks. And these are around operational risks, regulations, uncertainty, also a lot of things that we've heard today around the questions around carbon credits and how to apply those. Ultimately, uncertainty of revenues and costs. And then all of that at the top of the pyramid leads to the commercial risks. Now, what we have seen a lot in the banking sector is that we have a few banks that are quite engaged, like Canara Bank, like SBI, and a few others that have a lot of experience in lending to CBG and are great kind of supporters of the Satat scheme and have engaged a lot. However, this level of experience, what we've seen, does not translate evenly across the entire banking sector. So with that, what we've seen is banks asking for high collateral, high interest rates, essentially terms that when you blend them in and you think about building a CBG plant and getting the financing, it makes it quite unsustainable. So while you have some entities that can build one plant and put up the collateral for one, doing a second, third, fourth, and so on becomes more challenging. So how do we think about this, and how is the World Bank looking at all of these challenges, and what are we kind of working on and thinking about? So this is our broad objective in the CBG sector. Now, this is a sneak peek for all of you because this is a project that we're currently designing, and we will be taking it to our board of directors in the summer for approval. So we're currently preparing what we call an investment project. Investment project is just, there's an actual investment on the ground that we're supporting of about $250 million to address some of the key challenges. Now, some of this work we've started already. So there's the analytical assessments around feedstock, technology, and cost benchmarking that we've already done. But in addition, we'll also be looking at capacity building. And what we mean by that is capacity building, working with banks, working with different stakeholders on understanding the sector. And then assessment of FOM, carbon credits, and working with state nodal agencies. Then the next layer down is the institutional support. Again, I won't go through each of these, but stakeholder engagement to progress the CBG sector, both on the financial side and the policy side. And then finally, how we're going to do this. So we have two main instruments that we have designed under this $250 million project. So one, as Dr. R.K. Singh mentioned, is the risk-sharing facility to mobilize commercial lending for CBG. And then the second one is lending for policy and regulatory support, really to create the enabling environment and strengthen the enabling environment for CBG. Again, the details of this will come out in the next few months once we have our final approvals, but this is really a flavor of how we're targeting the sector, not just on the financing side, but we really feel that unless we support some of the regulatory and policy bottlenecks at the higher level, we cannot get more projects on the table and we cannot get more banks to come on board as well. So this is really just an overview of the risk-sharing facility and some of the mechanics. Now, this is quite similar to other risk-sharing facilities that the World Bank has done. And when we say risk-sharing facility, what we really mean is a tool to aggregate a large number of projects and provide risk sharing. So how do we do this? So one is through an implementing entity, and in this case, it's working very closely with SIDBI. As Dr. R.K. Singh mentioned, SIDBI has a lot of experience already on implementing the World Bank's designed PRSF program. And so we really look to them as the implementing partner in this. So what this is supposed to do, the whole objective of this RSF is to mobilize commercial financing to CBG developers. So World Bank provides a guarantee that stands behind this whole structure. So we provide a guarantee to SIDBI. SIDBI then takes this guarantee and provides it to commercial banks who are lending to your projects. So what's really important to note here is that this is a back-to-back arrangement between World Bank and SIDBI and the commercial banks. So from a banking perspective, I don't know if there's many bankers in this room, but this is really, you're taking the World Bank risk, which is a AAA risk. So when you think about how to price loans and think about the collateral requirements in particular, this is quite an important instrument. So the objective is for participating financial institutions such as Canara Bank, such as SBI, such as others, to take this guarantee, maybe covering 50, 65% of the total debt, and use it to offset some of the risks for the loans that they're providing to CBG developers. Now, ultimately, the benefit is to lower the collateral requirements, improve interest rates, improve other terms and conditions, and all with the objective of mobilizing commercial financing into the sector. Because we do feel that this is quite a sector that is ripe for commerciality, that is ripe for bankable projects, but there are a few bottlenecks and challenges in the way. And the World Bank is designing this $250 million program, of which 150 is this RSF, about 100 is policy support. And we're really putting our weight and our strength behind this sector. With this, our ultimate objective is about a threefold leveraging of resources, of concessional resources. It's not just 20, 30, 40 projects. We're really trying to use this facility to kick off 100 projects and mobilize financing to 100. And we really believe that those 100 projects are going to create the case studies, the experience and the knowledge necessary to have this sector run on its own and be purely commercial. So I'm happy to take any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. So it's almost 11:30. So we'll be breaking for the tea after this, but we can take few questions. So if any questions are there. Yeah, please.
We are talking about the carbon credits on the new projects. I just want to know what's the status of carbon credits on the running plants. Like we own a biomass gas power plant of 15 megawatts, and we use about 400 tons of biomass. So we generate there is a potential to claim these carbon credits. But I don't think after 2019 there is any opportunity to place this. Plants are still running, there is a reduction in CO2 by using the biomass. But I don't see opportunity right now because I find there is no value existing. So if someone can really help me out. Hello. If someone can help me out, both of you are there, probably some enlightenment to what's going on with the existing market may help. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Sir, just a few query from my side. When the plan was being commissioned,
It was done in 2016.
and after that, are you availing the carbon credit by any means?
We have hired a consultant who is compiling, sending for auditing, but because there is no market, there is no real interest.
So you have all the documentation proof that you have initiated the process during your commissioning. It is still difficult because carbon credit talks about the project which are real and new. There are in voluntary carbon credit also, none of the registry which are active in world market will not accept projects which was commissioned 2 years ago, more than 2 years ago for registration. But still you can provide me the documentation, I will see the viability. But the chances are very meager.
If you grow Napier grass or energy crops, would those projects still be eligible for carbon credits? One. Second, isn't Pareli and all that as biomass, so would you still get carbon credits? So these are my...
Yes, both the cases, yes.
And how is that? Because you have agriculture emissions also being considered, right? What about the emissions that you're already incurring in growing the energy crop?
So the project related emissions will be deducted in your credit calculation. Suppose the Napier grass will produce CBG or biogas or anything. That utilization is avoiding the emission from fossil X. If to grow that grass, if you have a Y emission, X minus Y will be your credit.
One question. Sorry. How are you calculating the carbon enrichment which takes place with the fermented organic manure?
Okay.
That carbon enrichment in form, it will be treated as a sequestration project.
Are you first of all calculating it as of now in any of your projects?
No, there is no methodology yet in calculating. So the methodology for that particular sub-technology has to be developed. And we have that capacity, but there should be a viable commercial business proposition for us to develop that methodology.
Okay.
Mr. Sengupta, one question is that a lot of people are into getting into this project. So what kind of handholding which you provide from the day one, and how's the handholding happens from your side?
Considering, it's a direct business question. Considering this, so yeah. So considering this sector is not very common, investing in handholding for a project proponent may perceive risky from his side. So we provide a success-based model where we take up the turnkey job of holding your hand till you get the revenue, and post you get the revenue in your book, then you will spend on me.
So my question is that we are in the nascent state of learning the project. So from there, how is the technical support or any other support?
All technical and procedural support will be on our responsibility.
I just have one question. You didn't mention the concept of additionality, which is the essence of carbon credits, i.e., a project is only viable when you include the revenue from the carbon credit. So is there, in essence, a dichotomy here? If you're planning a project to get the debt portion of the project, the bank will need to be satisfied that the project's viable. How do you therefore then justify having a carbon credit on that project? Because you've already got the bank to agree that it's financially viable. How do you reconcile that with the concept of additionality, which I understood was the essence of how a carbon credit gets generated?
Sir, there is various ways to put your logic. Bank is only responsible for their DSCR, the service coverage ratio. If the project satisfies that DSCR requirement as per the bank, they will invest into the bank. But being an equity investor, I have several other options which is far better, which sets my equity benchmark. And I, as an equity investor, will definitely go by the equity benchmarking logic to justify the financial additionality.
So we are closing the session because already delayed. So we have another session after tea. We can ask questions to all eminent panelists during the tea. Yeah.
I just wanted to make one
Yeah, okay.
clarification on the debt financing question. So from the perspective of banks, and I think Canara Bank would agree, is that the projects have to be bankable on their own, minus the carbon credits, right? So from a World Bank guarantor perspective, we would look at a project as being bankable and have secure cash flows from the FOM and the offtake. The carbon credits is almost, at this stage, given where the market is, it's a sweetener, right? Given where the carbon market is today, you cannot rely on it as a banker, from a banking point of view as you're a lender.
That is futuristic.
Yeah.
Actually, that is futuristic. So we cannot include that into account. At the time of giving any credit, this should not be considered. Your whatever you get in future, that we will not consider.
So may I request Subodh Kumar ji to please do the formalities for the session, and present the mementos to first to Mr. Samrat Sengupta. Next, Mr. Dr. R.K. Singh, Mr. Hea-Bong Cheoung, Madam Prajakta Chitre, Mr. Bhavendra Kumar, so one camera, one picture of the panel. Mr. Sengupta, that's the picture of the panel. So the next session will start at 12. I request you to please have your tea and come back in 15-20 minutes so that we can start next session in time.